to the main event of the evening, when we welcome another 5 players from the past as voted by the supporters, and they are formally inducted to the St Johnstone Hall of Fame, with their names to adorn the board in the foyer at McDiarmid Park. Once again, there was a superb response from the club, the We Are Perth websites, the local press, and of course just word of mouth. And as the chairman mentioned, he may have turned 80, but our first inductee has journeyed all the way from Cheltenham to be present this evening. A wing half, he clocked up 265 appearances for St Johnstone between 1959 and 1966, scoring 12 goals along the way. Remarkably, as the chairman says, he started every one of those games, no appearances from the subs bench. He was lured from Queen's Park as an amateur by Bobby Brown and rewarded his manager's judgment by playing a key role in the team, including assuming the captaincy during 2 successful promotion campaigns. To put things in context, when Saints were promoted in 1960, it was the first time they'd graced Scotland's top flight since 1939. In his early days at Muirton, he retained his amateur status and was rewarded by being one of just 4 Scots in the GB football team, which featured at the Rome Olympics in 1960. He flew the flag for Saints against a Brazilian side, which I noted featured the 1970 World Cup winner Gerson, and also in games against Italy and China. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron McKinven. Obviously, there's a lot of the folks here that are maybe a bit too young to have remembered you in your heyday. But if you're looking back at your time at St Johnstone, if we could start maybe on the Olympics, what are your memories of representing Great Britain at those Olympic Games in Rome?
Yeah, it was very much, because what used to happen, we used to all come along at night and we'd all be together. And there was names like Cassius Clay and all the big names, you know. And I was there from St Johnstone, just a wee guy from St Johnstone, and all these athletes, you know, that I can't remember their names, but it was absolutely amazing, you know. Yeah.
And the football, was the standard totally different from what you were experiencing at St Johnstone?
St Johnstone was better. Yeah. I think that was the happiest time of my life when I came to St Johnstone, you know, because I worked as a designer, and when I came along, Bobby Brown was the manager, and he said, "Could you design this room for us?" And I said, "Which room?" He says, "Oh, well, we want to invite people." And so I designed a bar for him with a table and all the rest of it. And Bobby Brown, of course, was one of these managers that he was always the best dressed. Well, some of us in training, we used to go with half a trouser, you know, one other one was long, and he was sitting there with his bonnet and his all the best. I mean, he was a character, that one.
So maybe I'll give you Dave Mackay's phone number, because the St Johnstone dressing room could do a makeover big style. So we'll have a word with you. Anyway, you won 2 titles with St Johnstone. Was there any particular memories of those 2 seasons?
Well, yeah, because the television came along and said, "Could I go along as its captain at St Johnstone?" And I went along to the STV studios, the TV studios, and the guy said to me, "Look, I just want to have a wee word with you before you go." He says, "So what was it you liked about the cup and the winning the league?" So I said, "Well, I think it's a champagne." So he goes on and he says, "Now we've got Ron McKinven here. We'd just like to have a few words with him." He said, "Just ask him what he liked about." "Now don't say the champagne," he said. Left me speechless. Anyway, yeah.
Now, I know that one of your famous stories that is Alex Ferguson has mentioned, you were a teammate of Alex Ferguson when he was basically a teenager, I think, at Queen's Park. Talk us through that one and how he ended up at Perth.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Alex Ferguson did come, and he was a very strong sort of guy. But I remember once we were playing Rangers, and we had 2 or 3 injuries. It was that time people were off with the flu. And I said, the manager spoke to me, Bobby Brown, and said, what do we do? We've got a short of players. And I said, well, Alec Ferguson lives about 5 minutes from Ibrox. Oh, he says, well, could you find out? So I got a taxi and he took me there, and we went round the houses, and we eventually found him, and he came. And that was the game that changed his whole life, because not only he hit that bar, hit the post, and scored 3 goals. Now, against Rangers, that is really big, isn't it? That is really big. And the manager had said, if you beat Rangers, he says, I'll put you on £100, thinking we'd never, ever beat Rangers, because they were big time and we were just the wee guys. And Alec Ferguson scored 3 goals. And I met him, funnily enough, down at Cheltenham, because he's got a racehorse. And I live in Cheltenham just now. And I went up and spoke to him. And I said, hello, Alec, how you doing? Oh, he said, he recognised me right away, you know. And he had this racehorse. And I said, well, I bet on it. He said, oh, no, don't bet on it. I'll probably lose, you know. And, it was so nice meeting him. And he says, Ron, you're in my book. And I said, what's your book? He says, and it was The Life of Alec Ferguson. And I bought the book. And I measured about 4 or 5 times in it. Photographs, Queen's Park, photographs of St Johnstone. It was very touching, very touching.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ron McKinven.